In 1991, Ukraine declares its independence from the Soviet Union after centuries of being lodged in between the Eastern and Western worlds. In 2004, pro-Russian candidate Viktor Yanukovych wins an election that is deemed to be rigged. The people then took to the streets in a silent protest, which would be called the Orange Revolution. The people were successful, and the election results were overturned. During the following years, Ukraine would see many economic hardships and struggles. In 2010, Yanukovych would return, and this time the election results were official. Viktor Yanukovych was now Ukraine's president. Viktor Yanukovych ran with the promises of signing with the EU membership so that Ukraine could now officially be a Western and free society. But while making these promises in public, Yanukovych was secretly negotiating a pact to align with Russia. In 2013, the Prime Minister of Ukraine stunned the government house as well as an eager nation by announcing that Ukraine would not be signing the EU free trade agreement. This decision would leave a nation shocked, hurt, and confused. Within hours, many people started gathering in the streets of Kyiv to protest at a place called Maidan Independence Square. Hundreds of protesters soon turned into thousands as they took over Independence Square, screaming, "Ukraine is a part of Europe," also demanding that Yanukovych resign. They were also screaming convict and also revolution. It wasn't long before Yanukovych dispersed a special police force called the Berkuts to violently harass and terrorize the protesters, beating them with clubs over their head till they were bloody, sometimes 4 or 5 or even more against one. Despite these bloody beatings and encounters, the protesters did not lose their resolve. They stayed in their camps and non-violently stood their ground. Through harsh winter weather, sometimes snow and rain, the protesters did not budge. The constant attacks from Berkut only became more intensified when they began shooting down protesters dead in the streets in cold blood. Yanukovych was now using intimidation by death. Despite many citizens dying, the Ukraine people did not budge. They still held their ground, using shields to protect themselves and also helmets to protect their heads from the clubs. Some protesters even wore steel pans on their heads. Finally, after 93 days of violence and resistance, internal pressure from within the ranks of parliament, and a bogus promise from the government to hold special elections within a year, the Ukrainian people finally had enough.
Я вам скажу так, ми прийшли сюди сотнею, ми ні в якій організації, ми звичайний народ України, який приїхав відстоювати права. Ми не зі секторів, не з оборон, ми просто бойова сотня. І хочу вам сказати, що ми, прості люди, кажемо до наших політиків, які стоять за моєю спиною, ніякий Янукович, ніякий цілий рік не буде президентом. Завтра до 10-ї години він має піти геть. Перша вимога, мого побратима з Яворівщини застрілили, в нього лишилася дружина і маленька дитина, а наші лідери жмуть з цієї вбивці руки. Ганьба! Шановні побратими, земляки, українці, я вам чесно кажу, клянусь, я ні з однієї організації, там стоїть наша сотня, яка була у цьому будинку. Ми зробили переломний момент всі. Ми дали шанс політикам, те, щоб вони стали в майбутньому міністрами, президентами, а вони не хочуть виконати одну умову, щоб ЗЕК пішов геть. ЗЕКа геть. Друзі, я не буду багатослівним, не хочу розводити тут дурних розмов, яких нас годують 2,5 місяців. Я не вірю в ці важкі політичні процеси, які вони говорять. 77 чоловік поклало в голову, а вони домовляються. Я вас дуже прошу, підтримайте ту річ. Я вам кажу від своєї сотні, де є мій батько, який приїхав сюди. Якщо ви завтра до 10-ї години не виступите з заявою, щоб Янукович йшов у відставку, ми йдемо на штурм зі зброєю. Я вам клянусь.
The next morning on February the 22nd of 2014 before dawn, Yanukovych flees Ukraine via helicopter. Later that day, the Ukrainian parliament announces to the protesters that Yanukovych has resigned and will no longer be fulfilling his presidential duties. They also announced that an early special election would be held on May the 25th of 2014. The people cried, rejoiced, and celebrated while screaming, "Glory to Ukraine." It was stated that as many as 125 people were ultimately killed. Months later, the new Ukraine government signed the EU agreement, while Yanukovych was given asylum in Russia by President Putin. In the aftermath, pro-Russian separatists took over Crimea with the assistance of Vladimir Putin, which ultimately resulted into the annexation of Crimea. This would mark the beginning of a long and violent conflict that you still see today. There's a powerful documentary on Netflix called Winter on Fire on this very thing. I suggest you guys go watch it if you really want to see the full-blown event. It's very amazing. You will see the full resolve of the Ukrainian people on display, which is why I believe they will definitely win this war. I believe that God is on their side. Thank you so much for tuning into Life is Lyrical. If you like what you see, make sure you please like and subscribe. And God bless the Ukrainian people. We are definitely praying for you.